trail in Idaho. 8-year-old Robert Manwill's own mom accused of letting her boyfriend beat the little boy to death. Look at that beautiful face. Imagine him enduring those beatings that caused internal bleeding, bruising, swelling of the brain. After weeks of searching for an unknown killer, cops arrested Robert's own mom and her live-in boyfriend yesterday. Deputy Chief Jim Kearns of the Boise Police had this to say.
I send a strong message on behalf of the Boise Police Department and all those in this community who were touched by the tragic and untimely death of this little boy. Justice would not be denied for Robert Manwill.
Such a betrayal. This community held vigils for Robert. They were terrified for their own children, thinking a madman was on the loose. And now cops say it was Robert's own mom and her boyfriend. This has touched such a nerve with so many people. Phone lines lighten up. Ivy, California, your question or thought, man?
You know, my heart goes out for this little boy, Robert, who was murdered by this mother and boyfriend, two pieces of trash. They must get the death penalty for this. But, most of all, I blame CPS. They had no right to let her have visitations with Robert, knowing she had already abused a child. They are not doing their job. This has to stop. They put Robert at a risk with her, and see what happens. He's gone. I am so sick over this. It's heartbreaking.
Well,
but
you're very, very articulate. I will say they have not been convicted of anything. They are simply accused at this point, and we have to make that clear. Curtis Sliwa, though, the outrage is palpable. How hard do you have to hit a kid to cause internal bleeding, bruising, and swelling of the brain?
Oh, this monster, this cretin with chromosome damage. And you saw him. He was sitting there reading it because apparently this degenerate can read. His girlfriend can't. And you got to say to yourself, what kind of a monster is permitted to come into that house and possibly have hit the other child? Remember, he wasn't even permitted to go near the stepdaughter. So who knows what he did to the stepdaughter, never mind the stepson. And then the 8-year-old, it's almost like bringing a new victim. What child services should always do is, when in doubt, you keep the children out. Simple, common sense, pragmatic. If there's doubt, keep the children out.
And Jane, I want to say there's two issues here I think we're looking at. One is the fact that this mother picked a violent offender to bring into her home. That should have been a big red flag right there, that she cared less for her children than for her love life. And the second thing is, CPS tends to return those children awfully quickly for that family reunification thing. So they put them in these little programs. They require, oh, maybe go 10 times. Oh, get your child back. They should have to sit there for a year and work their butts off to prove every living day that they deserve those kids back.
We all know therapy takes years. You can't do a couple of months. I've been in therapy for years, decades. Right. Okay, right. You cannot do a couple of months of therapy and make any kind of meaningful change on an issue as deep-rooted as sadism toward a child?
No, you absolutely can't. And I think that even worse here is the fact that this wasn't just some minor abuse. This was a fractured skull that she was convicted of. So this is very, very serious. And you're right, Jane. I mean, for her to be back taking care of kids within 2 months of when this whole thing took place is shocking. And again, it just makes me wonder, what were the standards that they were using to be able to evaluate and determine when they were fit to be able to take care of kids? I would really like to know, because this makes no sense.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how many months,
if I can interrupt for a second, I might just say that sometimes these standards are pretty minor, and these people, the illiterate mother, the ex-convict boyfriend, they know the game to play. They know the answers to give. She may not be able to read, but she knows what to tell child services, obviously enough to get the kids back. Yes, as you said, Jane, there were a number of red flags in this particular case. They were overlooked. We spoke about this before. Staffing is a serious problem with Child Protective Services. These are not trained investigators that go out and ask the right questions. These are civil servants that are trying to do a good job, but unfortunately, they don't have the techniques that a skilled investigator would have to research a case like this.
Well, they should get them. If we're going to spend all this money locking people up, and we lock up more people than any other country in the entire world.
They're not spending so much money. These people are not getting rich in child services. How about spending some more money on child services? To vet these things instead of just
waiting for the kids to die and then locking people up.
Spending money is not the only answer. Spending money in the right direction. The answer
that's what I'm
is
saying.
proper
Trained, they're
investigations.
overburdened, they have too
Absolutely.
many cases, and they don't care.
All true.
Well, I don't know that they
I
all
know
don't
about them
care.
not
I don't know
caring.
about
I
that.
couldn't say that they
Nobody
don't
can
care.
write a report
I'm sure they care
passing
very
these kids off
seriously, and
and
I'm
out.
sure there's going to
All
be a lot of changes made in that particular
But
office.
the
as a
rule
result
of
of
thumb
this
has to be, when in doubt, you keep them out. Just like Curtis said, you don't ever take a chance by letting a child go back into an abusive environment.
But
you
unfortunately,
always
they did.
err to
Your
the
doubt
side
and their
of
kids.
doubt might
protection.
not
All
be
right.
exactly the same.
Here's the other
That's
thing
the
that
one of
gets
the
me.
problems.
Before Robert Manwill was missing 10 days, his mom and her boyfriend, who are now accused of murder, actually wore T-shirts, Find Robert T-shirts, and I believe we have that somewhere. We're going to throw that up when we have it. But that, to me, if they knew where the body was, and they are walking around wearing Find Robert T-shirts, to me, that takes it to a, there they are, Find Robert T-shirts. Do you see that, guys? That is absolutely going to create this huge feeling of betrayal in the community that they're walking around with those T-shirts. Sandy, Illinois, your question or thought?
Yes, I wanted to find out, did the biological father try to fight his ex-wife from having visitation rights with the child? And if so, wouldn't he have a lawsuit against the child services or someone for making him let her have him?
The Child and Protective Services are going to have some kind of governmental immunity from doing their job, and they won't be held responsible in a court of law.
You know what I think is interesting? He's wearing sunglasses. I always find that interesting. When people do interviews and they wear sunglasses, I always wonder, what are they trying to hide? Dr. Dale Archer?
The sun was shining, Jane, for example.
No,
That
Jane,
particular day.
you're absolutely right. That's why poker players wear sunglasses, so you can't read their emotions. So yeah, of course, they are trying to hide.
I like
Or
to
they
add
could be
one
trying to
more
hide
thing.
something.
And I want to point out, Jane,
Excuse
that
me.
it's interesting sometimes when I've been asked about when children have gone missing and the parents have shown up on TV, and I show any kind of skepticism saying, well, we have to look at all avenues, whether the child was kidnapped or whether the parents were involved. People go, oh no, it couldn't be because they were wearing those T-shirts and really seeming sincere. Not
Jane,
necessarily.
the arsonist is always standing outside the fire watching and enjoying his work. This is not unusual.
Remember, we haven't seen the evidence, and we don't know what happened.
Okay,
got a
panel,
good
hang
idea,
in there,
though.
hang in there. Hold those thoughts. More of the shocking arrest in Robert